It is the quarterfinal round. Juan Ferrero and Andre Agassi of the Madrid 2012 Masters. No, that is not a typo. They're hoping to get the Olympics in 2012. This is the first year this event has been in Madrid. This is the way the draw looks right now from the quarterfinals on. There are a couple of guys who have already advanced, Jimmy.
Yuri Novak is solidifying his spot in the Masters with that semifinal finish. Sebastian Grosjean as well over the qualifier. Agustin Caleri, he's through the semifinals. We still got Federer, Santoro, and Agassi Ferrero coming up.
You talk about Andre Agassi throughout his career, 53 titles, 14 Masters Series titles, but only one time in his career has he ever finished #1 back in 1999. Very close to doing that this year.
Well, he's been an incredible player over the years. He turned pro in 1986. It was so many years ago. Look at his record. He's still in every tournament that he plays, 46-8. He's been so consistent this year, consistently getting great results.
Here's a look at the runs at #1 for Agassi. There is he finishing #1 in '99. And look at the 63 wins. Compare that to 1995. 73 wins, finishing #2, of course, to Pete Sampras.
Well, Pete Sampras, unfortunately for Agassi, was in there all those years, 94, 95, all through the 90s. Sampras got the better of Agassi in those mid-years, but it's been Agassi the last couple of years. It's been a little better than Sampras.
Yeah, you saw that towards the end of '95 where he finished 4-2. I even had a win over him back then. That was kind of like the beginning of his slide, I think. Agassi to serve. Agassi played Feliciano Lopez last night in front of this Spanish crowd, and here he is again against another Spaniard, 21-year-old Juan Ferrero, who will have a lot of support today. 42-20 match record, most of his wins coming on clay. But here's a player who I feel has a great opportunity throughout his year to do well on this hard surface.
Well, he's a player that should, with the way he hits his ground strokes, he can take it early, and that's what makes the difference on a hard court. He should be able to win matches on hard, and he does.
And if Ferrero wins today, he all but solidifies his second appearance in the year in championship.
He'll move ahead of Marat Safin into third place in the race, and you're right. I expect him to be there at the end.
Quickly to 15-30, second serve. Well, that's what we're going to see today. We're going to see basically a match played from the baseline. That's what we saw at the French Open. They've only played one time. Ferrero got the better end of that one in 4 sets.
There are only 2 types of players that can beat Andre Agassi. One of them is a huge server, a la Pete Sampras, or some big server that's on that day that Agassi can't get a hold of the return. The other type of player is a baseliner that has the ability to stand up to Agassi toe-to-toe from the baseline and not be dominated. And Ferrero is one of those types of baseliners. There's not many of them. Marcelo Rios can do it. Leighton Hewitt does it just on his speed. He's able to run down enough balls and handle Agassi's pace. But most players from the baseline, he just dominates you, Agassi. Ferrero is not going to be dominated.
Wow, take a breather after that game. Agassi loses serve to start out the match. First blood for Ferrero.
And what a way. The way the rallies are running. Agassi refusing to back away from the baseline, but having to hit balls right off the ground because of the pace. You can see what's happened so far here in the tournament. Tommy Haas, #1 seed, goes down with a blister. Saf and Henman all lose early. Leighton Hewitt pulled out with illness, and Albert Costa would have loved to have played here. A Spaniard, he would have loved to have the crowd behind him, but his back was just too bad. He couldn't make it.
Yeah, that's a little disappointing to play in front of the Spanish crowd the first time it's in Madrid, and he has to pull out the French Open champion Albert Costa. Tommy Haas, you mentioned, he goes out with blisters. He has never made the year-end championship, so now that's in jeopardy for him after such a good year. Now Ferrero to serve with a break in hand. I find it interesting. You mentioned Agassi. He's been on the tour since 1986. The kind of game that he played, granted he's a big power player, but to play a baseline game, for that many years, how many miles has he put on his body?
Agassi had the advantage of early in his career only playing every other year. Even though he was out in the court, he'd have a great year and follow it up with a year where he drops to 100 in the world, where he couldn't win a match and hardly played. And then the next year he'd come back fighting again. And I think in a sense, those rests helped him continue to play well at this level, because you're right, most of the time baseliners don't last as long as a big server that doesn't have to work quite as hard to win his matches.
Jim Courier comes to mind. Michael Chang comes to mind when you say that. 30 love.
Agassi's gotten stronger and stronger over the last couple of years. Mentally, he's really been focused. He knows the end is somewhere near as far as his tennis career goes, and I think he wants to win as many titles as he can.
Agassi gets on the board in this game. Still 40-15. See how far inside the baseline Agassi was on that second serve. He wasn't able to do that yesterday against Feliciano Lopez, the guy with a big lefty serve. Agassi won that match 7-5 in the third.
7-6, 6-7, 7-5. Only one break of serve the entire match.
That was at 5-all in the third set. So he holds off 3 game points and squares it even at deuce.
Entirely different match today, obviously, for Agassi. Plays a huge server last night, no breaks of serve. Well, we start this match. He's already been broken once. He wasn't broken the entire match yesterday. And now Ferrero in a little bit of trouble at deuce on his own serve after having 40 love.
Well, that's a typical point that both players like to play.
Disconcerting game for Ferrero. He had things going his own way, and you could see the doubt starting to creep into Andre Agassi's mind. He's already lost to Ferrero once, and he doesn't like to play against a guy that can stand with him toe-to-toe from the baseline. And it looked at the start of this match as though Ferrero was again a little bit quicker, a little bit stronger from the baseline. But these last 4 points, a couple of errors for Ferrero, has given Agassi a little hope.
Well, one thing Agassi's done, I mean, for the last 14 years, he's proven that he can stand toe-to-toe with everyone, from the baseline. I mean, he's had a great career. Look at the number of top 10 finishes of guys over the years. Agassi at number 12, tied with Sampras at the top. Jimmy Connors. I mean, looking at this group right here, where do you put Agassi in line with some of the all-time greats?
Well, he's right up there with this group of guys because he's the only guy that's won all 4 Grand Slams from this entire list of people. And on top of that, if he finishes top 3 this year, he'll be tied with Jimmy Connors as the oldest to finish that high in the world. Longevity for Andre Agassi to go along with everything else.
Certainly he's going to finish in the top 10, top 5. I think you mentioned longevity. I mean, a lot of guys can go out and play good for a couple of years or a couple of tournaments. We saw earlier this year Johansson at the Aussie Open, Albert Costa at the French Open, and then they've kind of fallen off a little bit. But Andre has had the longevity, solid years, so many times in his career. On the list of all-time greats, do you put Agassi ahead of that group? Some of the, you know, like the Connors, the Lendls, guys who never won, you know, one of the majors. Lendl, obviously, the Wimbledon. Connors, Edberg, Becker never won the French.
McEnroe never won the French.
In terms of all time, I put him ahead of that group.
You probably do. The problem is that consistency-wise, he wasn't at the level of the guys you just mentioned. He's had those years where he dropped out of the rankings, where he's been a little bit up and down, whereas Connors, McEnroe, Lendl, those guys basically spent the entire time they played in the top echelon of the game.
You know, it was really that year in 1997 where he dropped to 122 in the world.
It's one thing if you do that with an injury. You didn't play, you were injured, so you dropped to 122. Agassi did it by losing.
And really, that's the only year. I mean, 1993, he finished 24 in the world, and that was due to injury, where he had wrist surgery the year after he won Wimbledon. And ever since that, you know, top 10 finishes.
Oh. Ferrero just a little slow to get into the net after getting that lob over Agassi's head. He guessed right here. Ferrero controlled the ball beautifully, but he left just enough angle for Agassi, and Agassi found it beautifully with his back turned to Ferrero.
Thing is Agassi knew exactly where he wanted to hit that ball. That was no accident. He, you know, wasn't one of those between the leg shots there's a lot of luck involved. Game point, second serve.
The crowd will get into this match. In yesterday's match, Agassi against Feliciano Lopez, the crowd brought some drums in. They were playing the drums. They were stomping their feet. They were making a lot of noise. They get behind their players here in Spain. There's only one Spaniard left, and it's Juan Carlos Ferrero. They want to see him go all the way to the title.
Well, and in the inaugural Masters Series event in Spain, I think they'd kind of like to see one of their own take the title. So after losing his serve in the opening game, Agassi gets the break back and has a point for 2-1.
This is a matchup of which baseliner can open up the court first, can get control of the center of the court first. And that's the person who, in general, has been winning the points. That time, Ferrero a little lucky that he mishit that backhand and it turned into a nice angle. Got Agassi on the move. That was vintage Agassi. What you just saw there is the kind of point that just breaks a baseliner down physically. Agassi was on the baseline the entire point, and he had pushed Ferrero back. Ferrero does play a little better defense than Agassi does, but you don't want to play many points from behind the baseline with Agassi just running you relentlessly side to side.
Well, there's the call on the sideline that some people are whistling at. Certainly looks out. I think it was the correct call. Another game point for Agassi. It took a few, but he actually eventually won the game, 2-1. His coach Darren Cahill happy. More to come.
And if they don't set the course up as they do a major with incredibly gnarly, rough, and difficult situations for these players, they're shooting under par consistently and well under par.
Now, you played a little bit of golf yesterday, huh? How'd you shoot yesterday? What was your score?
I shot a 79 yesterday. So.
Oh my goodness, and that's
that was not good. I wasn't that. Yeah, it was a little easy.
So Ferrero serving 1-2, 25% first serves in so far in this match. We saw right here on ESPN yesterday, he and Correcha, they were both having a tough time on their own serve, especially early on.
Even more important against Agassi to get first serves in. You don't want him to be able to attack your second serve, start the point off from a defensive position.
You see Agassi already hugging the baseline.
There was a host of lousy shots in that point from both players, really, starting off with Ferrero's drop volley right here. Far too deep. Then Agassi could have tagged Ferrero. Instead, he just guided it down the line. Ferrero didn't do much with that lob. Finally, a good shot from Agassi to finish things off.
Well, maybe he says, okay, he hits a bad volley once. Let's see if he can hit another bad volley.
He did.
No winners for Ferrero.
5 for Agassi. Errors almost even. Having seen that, problem is that most of their ground strokes are all forcing. They're not perhaps producing clean winners.
You know, you would expect a player to, you know, you had mentioned earlier that it's going to be the player who's able to take advantage first in the point. You expect the player to be able to have the advantage when he's serving, but what Agassi's doing is when he's returning second serves, he's standing so far in, he's trying to take the advantage on Ferrero's serve. Take that advantage away from him.
And he's succeeding because of so many second serves that he's getting to see. That's the difference between first and second serve, what you just saw there. Ferrero took a little off his first serve, but got it so wide in the court that it left an opening. And Ferrero just produced his first winner. Beautiful backhand down the line.
Can't do anything with that. 30 all.
These guys are so good from the baseline. It's amazing how cleanly they hit the ball, especially Agassi, from right off the ground. He can half volley a ground stroke and just rip it right in the center of his racket every time. You see the difference for Ferrero between getting his first serve in or not. The problems he's having on second serve. 33% of the points he's winning on second serve. That says get your first serve in. Take a little off.
You know, already what we're seeing today over yesterday is the players playing more of a cleaner match. And I think that's one of the things that Agassi does, because typically when he comes out on the court, I mean, he day in, day out plays solid tennis. You know, he doesn't have these really highs and lows. So it really forces the other players to come up to his level. Ace number 1 for Ferrero. And you contrast maybe Agassi's game with the Sampras. Sampras can come out some days, you know, looking like he hasn't hit a ball in a month. And then the very next day, you know, he can play like a stallion.
Sampras's entire game really revolves around how he's serving. If he's serving well, the rest of his game starts to flow. We saw that at the US Open. All of a sudden he's acing everybody, serving 130 miles an hour. That's not fair. What Agassi can do to you when you're a baseliner, and he can't do it as well to Ferrero as he does to other players, because Ferrero is able to stand on that baseline as well. But eventually in this rally, again, Agassi backed up Ferrero. And once you get behind the baseline, Agassi immediately goes to those cross-court angles and just gets you further and further out of the court until you're just doing sprints. You can do that early in the match and stay with him and run down balls, but as the match wears on and you're a baseliner, it just takes your legs away.
That's one of the things Agassi counts on. He preys on that. Preys on players just wearing down and being able to wear them down over the course of a couple of hours.
There's never a free point when Agassi's playing well. He's not giving you anything where you can take a breath and say, okay, I've held serve easily.
Well, he makes you win the point. I mean, so many times you count on an easy error or missed ball, or a guy kind of one of those throwaway points and he just kind of makes his way to the net on a junk approach shot. He didn't do that. He's going to make you earn the point. Now he's about to, he does have a break point to win his 3rd consecutive game.
That's the serve Ferrero needs to use, the wide serve in both boxes. He's got to start Agassi off in the rally outside of the court. That down the center serve isn't, unless it's an ace, isn't going to do a lot of good for Ferrero. In this deuce court, he hasn't really tested Agassi's forehand return. I'd like to see him serve it out wide. Start Agassi off on the run. He's not listening. Keeps going for that ace down the tee.
Ooh. He's not going to listen to a guy who shot 79 yesterday.
I understand.
And again, the backhand winner down the line.
At a time when it didn't look like there was an opening over there, Agassi seemed to have most of the court covered. reiterate what I said earlier. It's who starts the point off with the advantage first. And again, second serve, Agassi stepped inside and got Ferrero on the move right away. Ferrero has to realize that he needs to make first serves. Agassi's too aggressive on his second serve. Take something off your first serve, get a higher percentage in.
And you think by serving wide on both sides will allow him to get the advantage earlier in the point?
It'll have Agassi out of the court at least to start the rally and open up some angles for Ferrero. First serve helped him in this rally as he got his favorite shot, that shoulder high forehand that he can really pound. That's the serve. You just saw the play that Ferrero has to use more often. He's finally held serve.
And a little trend we're seeing earlier in this match. You know, Agassi, a lot of times will stand a little bit to the left of the center mark, maybe trying to hit his forehand, but Juan Carlos able to take the backhand down the line. 3 winners off that backhand side down the line. 2 games all. Now his winner total up to 5, whereas previously it was 0. So what is that, 5 in that game?
5 in that game, and he barely held. It's a tough. That shows you how tough it is when you're playing Agassi and you're a baseliner. I guess from experience, Agassi now, he knows how to win with his style. And you can see that he does. As a baseliner, he serves upwards of 70% first serve percentage. Agassi knows he's not going to win free points necessarily by hitting aces and hitting big flat serves, so he uses his serve in a different way, which is opens up the court with it, gets a lot of first serves in.
He too having a lot more success when he gets his first serve in. 75% serves in for Agassi.
And when he's going for his first serve, it's when he's already leading in the game. 30 love, 40 love. Then maybe he'll try to hit an ace.
You know, it's the little subtleties that you just mentioned that lets me know that Agassi mentally is into a match, as opposed to just going out and trying to hit winners and hit big. You know, he's thinking out there. He's saying, you know what, I'm going to take the pace off my first serve and use the kick a little bit more, increase my first serve percentage.
I think he was helped out by Brad Gilbert, Agassi, because when Gilbert became his coach, though he's not his coach any longer, I think he started really letting him think, helping him think on the court.
Agassi now coached by Darren Cahill, Leighton Hewitt's former coach.
You never get an overrule on the far sideline. This ball on the far sideline, and it looks like it maybe was wide.
You know, from that angle, it looks like it could have been wide. No argument from Agassi. Game point. Agassi holds on to serve again. He is ahead in this first set, 3-2. Juan Carlos will be serving when we come back. This tournament, the Madrid 2012 Masters, is a little promotional thing to get the word out that they're in the running. For many, many years, they have been host to a smaller event, along with Jimmy Arias on Malavia, Washington. A smaller event on clay leading into the French Open, but for the first time they have an event of this magnitude, one of the Masters Series events.
And you gotta love the enthusiasm that the crowds have been coming with day in and day out. They're into their tennis here, and it's, as you can see, completely full for this match with the #1 Spaniard Juan Carlos Ferrero against one of the best players of all time in Andre Agassi.
And this facility built specifically for this event. And the word is that the players are very happy with the court surface. They're happy with the fans. The fans are loving the tennis. They have one of their own about to serve. From behind the baseline.
Here's a profile of Ferrero serving, and his first serve percentage far too low. When he gets that first serve in, he's doing just fine, nearly 80%. The problem is that second serve points won. Less than a third of the time he wins the point on the second serve.
Agassi heading over to the sideline, maybe breaking a string.
Ferrero ripping that forehand. Agassi not moving, looking down at his racket. Definitely went to a new racket.
All.
This is not quite the same match as we saw at the French, where Ferrero was able to counterpunch. He could get pushed back during a rally, but eventually get control of the rally back again. He's not been able to do that today. Once he gets pushed back, he stays on the defensive throughout the entire point.
Ferrero held off a break point in his last service game, and he faces two more.
Two straight missed first serves, and he loses both points. Agassi is relentless in the way he's controlling these rallies once he gets a look at a second serve.
First serve percentage for Ferrero, 42%. Can he win this match with that kind of percentage, yes or no?
I don't think so.
All right, I'm going to write that down. Jimmy says no at 42%.
I said I don't think so. I want to cover all the bases. So you see what happens, the difference when he gets that first serve in. This would be a nice time for that wide kicker. First serve in.
Going to the body, see what Agassi tries to do in this second.
Well, we know he's going to move inside the baseline. That's one of the small problems. If you are inside the baseline and the second serve gets out there wide enough, there's not a lot of defense you can play from this point. He hit a nice hard return, but it really left the court wide open for Ferrero, and Ferrero has shown you he doesn't mind hitting down the line backhands.
That's the fourth down the line backhand winner we've seen. He hasn't hit any winners cross court.
Well, I wanted him to serve wide to the forehand side of the deuce court. Maybe that's why Ferrero hasn't been doing it, although that serve wasn't really wide. That serve is right in the strike zone of Agassi.
Third break point of this game. So from being down a break early in this first set, Agassi 4-2. Come on, Wisconsin Badgers.
Michigan? Is that the whole Wisconsin thing, or?
Well, it's more of a Michigan thing, because anytime Ohio State goes down, you know, if you're a Michigan fan, that's a good thing.
I see.
It doesn't matter if it, you know, if it has any implications, just the fact that they go down. I have some friends down there in Florida who think the same about Michigan. Tabitha. Nope.
One of the greatest front runners in history in tennis is that man, Andre Agassi. Once he gets a lead and once he believes he's going to win and he's confident and he thinks he's got you in trouble, he in general just finishes you off. And that is the problem now facing Ferrero. As you can see that Agassi's got some confidence. He feels like he's in control of these points. And Ferrero's got to find a way to put some doubt in Agassi's mind, or it's nearly impossible.
How important do you think it is for Agassi to finish #1 this year, even though he hasn't won a major? You think that's, you know, you think he thinks about that? Because in the past, he's put so much emphasis on the majors.
I think he thinks about it. It's a way for him to salvage this year. He didn't win a major, so that's a disappointment for Agassi. But it would be a nice consolation prize to still finish the year #1.
Would be the second time in his career. Bringing the heat.
Problem is that Agassi's forcing Ferrero to go for more than he's comfortable with. He's hitting the ball a little bit harder than really he wants to, and that's because Agassi's controlling the points when they both play at their normal pace.
Well, he's not a player that's going to be defensive. I mean,
he's never defensive, but he's going to have to even put a little extra on his balls right now to bother Agassi. That's what we've seen so far.
See, Agassi keeps yanking at that tag or something back there, or his collar.
Won't see this from Agassi very often. This ball set up beautifully for him. He just catches the tape. Obviously, it was the shirt's fault.
No, you know, you wouldn't be a tennis player if you didn't blame it on the shirt, the shoes, the grip, the sun, the racket, something.
That was an unbelievable overhead, simply because Agassi was going to take it out of the air, and at the last second said, no, I don't feel comfortable with that. Let me let it bounce. So now he's rushed for time, and he still just unloads on that overhead with so much depth. Ferrero couldn't handle it.
You know, for a guy, and Andre Agassi, who isn't as comfortable up at the net, but certainly wants to stay at the baseline, he has one of the best overheads on the tour.
He does. His overhead's incredible, especially those type that bounce deep in the court. He seems to miss him, and he hits them huge.
Well, he had a little hiccup in the middle of that game, but he holds on to serve and has a commanding 5-2 lead. What are we going to see from Juan Carlos? Welcome back, folks. ESPN's coverage of the Madrid 2012 Masters. It is quarterfinal Friday. The top seed left in the championship, Andre Agassi, changes rackets with the new ball change. He has a lead right now over Juan Carlos Ferrero, the lone Spaniard left in the championship. It's a capacity crowd here today, 9,500 folks have joined us for this match. Here's winners and errors. Both guys even on the errors. A couple more winners. That's only in the last couple of games for Ferrero.
Yeah, what's strange is that Ferrero looked like he was winning the match when you look at those stats. He has 3 more winners than Agassi, same number of unforced errors. What it doesn't show is forced errors. And Agassi is forcing Ferrero into some errors.
Agassi 2 for 5 on break points, so he's up a break right now. Ferrero 1 for 1 on break points, which is also a big stat so far in this match. Jimmy Arias, Malavia, Washington.
Eerily similar first set to the one that we saw yesterday with Ferrero and Alex Corretja, only in that Ferrero broke serve first game of the match against Corretja. Then got down 5-2, held serve. Corretja held for the set at 6-3. And then it was Ferrero 11-1, so maybe he can take a little hope from what happened yesterday into this match.
Maybe.
Though somehow I don't think Agassi's going down 11-1 for the final 2 sets.
Agassi talked about how, you know, you come this far, coming to Spain, coming to Europe, you know, he wants to do well. And he is highly motivated to do well here, also in the upcoming Masters Series in Paris. He says, you know, when he loses now, it hurts a lot more. It sticks with him a little bit longer than losses earlier in his career.
Maybe that's why he's been so consistent, Agassi, this year. Very few surprising losses for him. Did lose to Michael Kratarchville early in Indian Wells at the Tennis Masters Series event there, and early at Wimbledon. Other than that, he's been so consistent.
Just as a reminder, tomorrow on ESPN2, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific time, the semifinals of the Madrid 2012 Masters. We hope you join us for that. Maybe we'll see Andre Agassi again. The winner of this match would go on to play Sebastian Grosjean, who we saw a couple of weeks ago on ESPN at the Davis Cup from Paris.
Grosjean is another guy that's beaten Agassi at Roland Garros at the French Open 2 years ago. Grosjean won that baseline match. As Agassi again starting to control things. Look where he's playing that point from, inside the baseline.
So Agassi now 3 set points, 45 minutes into this match. And holding serve easily, 6 games to 3. The American over the Spaniard. Can the crowd get Juan Carlos back into this match? In yesterday's round of 16 match, Andre Agassi taking on a wild card, Feliciano Lopez. And that's the kind of tennis we saw. Big forehand. Lopez, a local favorite. He is from Spain. First set, 6 games all. Agassi serving 5-4 in the tiebreak.
No breaks of serve throughout the entire first set. Agassi said afterwards Lopez is Feliciano live arm Lopez, commenting on how big he hits his serve, #1, and his forehand as well. He can whip forehands around the court. These guys were struggling to put a dent in each other's serve. And Agassi eventually won that first set in a tiebreak, 8-6. And there you got to look at the serve and the forehand, but he can also volley Lopez. Look at that forehand volley with a little bit of pace, and the crowd was so into this match, playing some drums, beating their feet on the boards, making as much noise as they could.
Well, Agassi said the atmosphere out on this center court last night was very similar to that of a Davis Cup match. And Agassi serving for the match, but not so quickly with that kind of backhand. Again, match point for Agassi. And after going through 2.5 sets of no break points whatsoever, Agassi was able to get the break of serve at 5-all, serve it out 7 games to 5, and that Feliciano Lopez, I don't know, I just have this feeling that we might hear his name a couple of more times over the next few years.
If he plays anything like he played last night, we'll hear a lot of Feliciano Lopez. As Agassi said, he's got a live arm. He's got that type of game that's very dangerous. Big serve, big forehand, isn't afraid to get to the net, and obviously wasn't at all intimidated by playing Andre Agassi.
Well, and that was nice to see, playing a guy like Agassi in front of his, his home crowd where they wanted him to win, and playing as well as he did. Now the question is he going to be able to continue that kind of tennis? Now Juan Carlos starts out serving in the second set, love 15.
Great movement at this point from Ferrero. He just held his ground and never even took a step. Could be a sign that already physically Agassi is starting to break him down.
I don't know if I'd go that far. We haven't even gotten to an hour yet.
No, I don't think it is, but poor sign for Ferrero, who's a guy that I've never seen just give away points. He's the guy that keeps running, keeps moving.
Big forehand, 30-15.
Finally got the better of Agassi, got Agassi to play defense, and that's something Agassi doesn't do well. He doesn't have to do it often. He doesn't really like being pushed back behind the baseline. Agassi guessing right. It was a huge serve that set things up, and Ferrero was pretty confident as he jumps up and whacks that, but Agassi, as you see, his body still in total control. The pace didn't throw him off in any way. Wrong-footed Ferrero.
Still should have made the volley. Dangerous time for Juan Carlos Ferrero.
That was a huge second serve, not just on pace, but with his placement, catching the line on his second serve, and that's something Agassi's forcing Ferrero to go for more with his second serve. Could cause a few extra double faults as this match goes on if he keeps trying to get that aggressive with it.
Agassi's not so sure, but ace number 2 for Ferrero. Down a set, 1-0 in the second set. You talk about the race standings that we've been talking about all week long. Leighton Hewitt and Agassi are the 2 confirmed that'll be heading to Shanghai. The top 8 will be there. Might be a surprise, like Yuri Novak making his way there.
Novak said he had no chance. I talked to him at the US Open. He had absolutely no chance. Well, now, obviously, he's tied for 6th. He's got a chance.
And Novak is in the semifinals here. He beat Paradoran Srichapan from Thailand, one of the hottest players on the tour.
Got to remember, really, there's only 7 spots because either Albert Costa or Thomas Johansson, 2 Grand Slam winners, will get that 8th spot if they finish in the top 20, which they will.
Now, that didn't really happen years ago. The guys who won the majors typically were in because they had such good years. But you take Johansson and Albert Costa,
and
they had
Sampras. There's 3 of them this year.
3 of them. My point was, they had such good tournaments for those 2 weeks, but outside of that, not a whole lot going on.
Well, the game has changed completely from those early years where the top guys dominated every event they played. Nowadays, there's so many players that can win at a given tournament. Agassi, one of the few that you can count on week in and week out to win some matches, to make the quarterfinals. We showed you earlier, 11 of 13 tournaments he's played this year, he's been in the quarterfinals or better. That's consistency.
That's a pretty good stat. But I guarantee you, if you ask Andre, he's probably, with the exception of really 2 events, his 2 Masters Series events, Rome and Miami, that he won, he's had a disappointing year because he gauges his year by how he does at the majors.
Poor start for him. He wasn't able to play in the Australian Open.
Went all the way to Australia, pulled out with a wrist injury.
Lost to this man Ferrero at Roland Garros. Lost to Sherchapan at Wimbledon in the second round. That was the worst loss of the year for him. And then obviously the final at the US Open, where he played his old nemesis.
But that loss at Wimbledon to Sherchapan has turned out maybe not to be such a bad loss, because Sherchapan has won 21 of his last 27 matches, 28 matches actually, with his loss today to Novak. And he has been on a tear really the last 2.5 months.
This crowd knows that Ferrero's in a little bit of trouble here. They're trying to get behind him, trying to get him psyched up, but you can see that the rallies, the way they're going, Agassi is the player that's been more solid and has just a little extra on his shot, a little more power. Ferrero's begging for calls, and that's a sign that he's panicking. He doesn't know how to win points. He needs aces.
Trouble. She knows it too.
Well, the whole crowd knows it. This is a huge time. As I said, Agassi's one of the greatest front runners of all time. Once he gets ahead, just puts his foot on the gas and keeps it going. Ferrero's break point happened in the first game of the match. He converted, and it's really been all Agassi since then.
And there's the break of serve. A bit of a subdued crowd right now as their man is down a set and a break to one of the best. Agassi in the commanding lead. The Spanish favorite has his hands full right now. The 5th seed, Ferrero, playing on Agassi's favorite surface. Agassi leading 6-3 and 2-1. The crowd, they're trying to chant, they're trying to stomp their feet to get something going. But Agassi is going to single-handedly taken out the Spanish contingent. Beat Lopez last night. A thriller.
See how Agassi's serving, and the difference between the two is really that first serve percentage. Nearly 70% for Agassi's winning the points when he gets his first serve in. Starting to win the points even on second serve. Ferrero's going to have to do a little bit more risk-taking. Try to do something to not be on the defensive. He may lose more quickly that way if the ball isn't going in, but it's his only chance really of winning. There's that overhead front behind the baseline again from Agassi. He hits it flat and deep and low bouncing. Should have done more with that first overhead.
I'm not so sure. He just wanted to stay in the point a little bit longer and run his opponent a couple more times across the court.
He does love to punish you physically, Agassi. And there are times it seems like he could finish the point off. Early in his career he did. He went for clean winners and hit them. But now he prefers to say, if you're going to play against me physically, I'm going to just beat you up. It's relentless.
And Agassi can play that style because when he walks onto a court, he's not concerned about his physical ability. He knows it's going to be there because of how much he's been able to train and get himself into shape.
Having said that, if he played himself, he wouldn't be able to run down the balls all day. Like, he forces you to run so much that of course he's going to be a little fresher than you are in the end. Agassi's stepping it up here in the second set.
Agassi 3-1. Madrid hoping to get the Olympics in 2012, hence the title of the event. This crowd here, a capacity of 9,500 a day, if that's any indication of the fervor that these fans have for sporting events and getting the Olympics, they have a very good shot.
There's got to be a point in time in a match when you reflect and say, what I'm doing isn't working. Let me try something different. Ferrero should be at that point now, and he just continues to serve at a dismal first serve percentage. He continues to go for first serves. And the problem is his first serve, even when it goes in, doesn't really bother Agassi. It's not big enough, his flat serve, to really give Agassi that much problem. Agassi's still going to get it back in play. Why not use your serve, slow it down, get a higher percentage, but get Agassi out of the center of the court?
But in the process of slowing his serve down, doesn't that give Agassi a chance to, get a look at his, basically a three-quarter serve?
It does, but if it's at least out of the court, if it's got him outside the sidelines, it gives Ferrero a chance to start moving Agassi.
That was an all or nothing backhand, and he got nothing. 2 more break points for Agassi. Jesus, guy's like the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going and going. When is it going to end? It's a lesson out there right now. Set and 4-1 for Agassi. All starts today at 3 Eastern on ESPN, immediately following tennis.
Oh, come on. Agassi gives the old I'm sorry, because he knows that was a pretty fortunate shot, but everything at this point going Agassi's way. He was forced on the defense. He slightly hit that ball and turned into a drop shot winner.
15 love. Also following tennis, you can log on to ESPN.com, and I'll be doing a live chat. So you can throw in all of your questions to me about what's going on here in Madrid and around the world of tennis.
Look at these stats, and the winners are nearly the same on forced errors. Pretty close. Score not all that close. Those break chances tell the story. 4 of 7 for Agassi. Ferrero's had only 1 break point. He did convert first game of the match. Agassi thought that ball might have been called out. The umpire suddenly yelled the score out with more enthusiasm than normal. And Agassi turned around. He didn't understand what 40-15 meant. 40-15.
A couple of aces. His second and third on the match. You know, you look at a match like this, and I came into this match and I analyzed, and I was like, you know, what do the players have to do? I certainly didn't think it was going to be a blowout like it is right now. I guess it's 7-5-1. I mean, I thought there was a shot that Ferrero might even win this match.
Well, I thought that Ferrero would be one of those guys, as I said at the beginning of the match. There's 2 types of players that can beat Agassi. Either a huge server that has a big serving day, or a baseliner with the ability that Ferrero has of taking the ball early and hitting with pace and being able to match Agassi toe-to-toe. And the crowd now starting to appreciate the genius of Agassi. As wherever he needs to be, he is. He's coming up with the shots time after time. Perfect balance Agassi has. That's something body never seems to be out of position, no matter how hard you hit the ball, how much you have him on the move.
Yep. Agassi is able to win this event. 43 points behind the #1 in the world, Leighton Hewitt. And then it'll be a...
Hopefully it'll come down to Shanghai, the Masters. They'll play each other in the final. Winner, #1 in the world.
Well, remember that happened in 2000. It came down to the last match of the year.
Gustavo Kuerten against Agassi.
That year, Kuerten finished #1, beating Sampras in the semifinals on Saturday, following it up with a straight sets victory over Agassi.
Indoors for his first indoor win ever. It was impossible what Kuerten did, but yet it happened.
30-15. Frustration.
A little anger, and he's saying, hey, maybe I can end this match in my favor if I can tag Agassi with this forehand that I slap as hard as I can.
If I could hit him in the chest?
Yeah, maybe knock the wind out of him. Something.
Finally, he gets on the board again. Game #2 for Ferrero in this second set. Agassi will be serving for the match when we come back in a spot in the semifinal. It's the 2012 Madrid Masters, it's quarterfinals. Andre Agassi commanding lead, serving for the match. And a spot in the semifinal against Sebastian Grosjean. He has not faced a break point since the first game of this match, Agassi. And in this second set has only lost 2 points on his own serve. So with that said, you would think that he's going to hold serve pretty comfortably here.
Look at the difference in the second set with those winners. Only 3 for Ferrero. Agassi bumped it up to 13.
Plus he's serving with new balls.
Let's just pile it on. As many problems as we can give to Ferrero. Crowd would love to see a break of serve here, just to get some excitement from this match. Put a little bit of doubt in Agassi's head.
You know, they haven't had a lot to cheer about. Certainly there's been good tennis today, but they want to cheer for their own.
Good tennis, but most of it off Agassi's racket. Ferrero has not played that poorly. You got to give credit to Agassi. He's just completely dominated from the baseline.
Amazing how he is able to raise the level of his game in these Tennis Masters events, Agassi. You know, these most important tournaments, these 9 Masters Series events, along with the 4 majors.
And Agassi a little disgusted with himself. He's had just the slightest letdown here. I think he's felt like he has the match well in hand. Back to business quickly. Missed a couple of first serves in this game, threw in a double fault.
Well, we mentioned that Ferrero, or you mentioned, probably wouldn't win this match at 42% first serves. It looks like he's going to finish the match at 46% first serves in. Agassi, 68. Andre Agassi now at match point to play Sebastian Grosjean, a guy he has a losing record against. And the last time they met was last year in the Tennis Masters Cup. And Grosjean won that in the round robin.
Grosjean also beat him last year at Roland Garros.
And Agassi finishes it with an ace. Finishes it in style. There's his coach, Darren Cahill. He's been with him all year long. And he takes down a man who beat him earlier this year in the French Open, 6-3 and 6-2. Jimmy, Andre Agassi looking in very good form right now.
That was vintage Andre Agassi, what you just saw. He's too good from the baseline against virtually every baseline that's ever played the game. He's able to take the ball earlier than everybody. He hits it cleaner than everybody does. It's almost as if his eyesight's better than everybody's. He can pick the ball up so early, and it is just too good what we saw from Agassi. Ferrero really did not have much of a chance after those first couple of games. His mistake was early. He let 1 love serving and did not play a good game from that point. Gave Agassi the break back, and then Agassi got the confidence he needed. And so he's in the semifinals against Sebastian Grosjean. Grosjean, a guy, as you said, has beaten him twice, 2 out of 3 times. And so Agassi will again be looking for a little bit of revenge. Yuri Novak, also a surprise semifinalist. 3rd time this year he's been in the semifinals of a Masters Series event.
And look at the qualifier. Fabrice Santoro maybe going to the semifinals if he can take down Roger Federer. But Andre Agassi is a winner today in straight sets. Everybody stay with us because we're coming right back.